It's a fact of human nature that people are both horrified and also a bit fascinated by disasters. However, it's not just voyeurism. Insights from previous calamities are proving life-saving, and now the expertise of Flinders University in disaster research has been recognised by the World Health Organization. There's a few seconds blank in Tim Weatherall's memory of the year 2002. It's a blessing really, because those missing moments are when the bombs exploded in Bali's Sari nightclub.
All I remember is everything went dead quiet, and then I actually thought I'd died because everything was quiet. I didn't really know what had happened, and I started, getting upset, thinking, what am I going to say to my mum and dad, or what are they going to think? I'm not going to come back here. The first thing when I woke up was I had, dead people lying on top of my legs, and that was when I recognised, oh God, I'm in a bit of strife here. And then it was just becoming really a battle to survive.
Sometimes surviving a disaster can be a numbers game. When yours is up, it's up. But to the experts, that doesn't mean the difference between life and death is all just a gamble.
The most important part of the story about disasters is the preeminent need to prepare beforehand. It's the steps that governments take and that organisations take, and absolutely the steps that are taken in households that will get you through the event better.
Professor Paul Arben studies how people and organisations respond to disasters and emergencies. A natural career progression, given that he joined St John Ambulance at the age of 11. These days he teaches young professionals better ways of dealing with disaster.
I remember watching 9/11 unfold on TV and wondering, oh my God, what would happen if that happened in Australia, or more importantly in Adelaide? So I became interested in how we would respond to disasters. We haven't had much experience with healthcare response to disasters in Adelaide, or not a whole lot of experience across Australia. So I think the fact still remains we still don't know, and that's what I'm trying to find out. What is it like to respond to a disaster, particularly within the emergency department?
The patient's a dummy, the wounds are latex, and the disaster hasn't happened yet, but the results are real. Flinders is now part of the World Health Organization's series of specialist centres dedicated to dissecting disasters. They've shaken some of the common myths, such as looting always being rife. Professor Arben said people tend not to behave like they're in a 1970s B-grade movie.
There are lots of those kinds of stories. The other very typical one is that people panic, that people want to evacuate, and that they are hysterical and concerned. And in fact what you see is community members rescuing each other, not the emergency services doing that. You see people helping each other in ways they wouldn't normally, and so on.
They've found the most common mistake communities make is to not properly plan for the disasters most likely to hit them. Paul Arben says everyone knew New Orleans' vulnerability to flooding. Nevertheless, Hurricane Katrina quickly revealed most hospitals had put backup generators down in the basement. He says Australia plans well for bushfires, but not so well for that other summertime hazard, the impact of long heat waves. None of this is a surprise to trauma specialist Professor Sandy McFarlane.
People live in bubbles, and I think people try and optimise their view of the world rather than really facing the harsh realities of often what life is.
Breaking that bubble, he says, not only takes knowledge, but imagination. Mistakes are also made post-disaster. Experts now talk of building community resilience. That means ensuring local schools, shops and other services can resume running again quickly, even if their buildings are wiped off the map. But traditional disaster responses have been found to kill that with too much kindness.
We often disable local organisations, and we do that bizarrely by providing an enormous amount of support to communities that are affected, and sometimes in the wrong way. So if we provide lots of resource in donations and goods and so on, services into an affected community, You run the local supermarket or the service station or the general practice, you're out of business for a while because people can get what they need somewhere else.
Come on, Alex.
In Tim Wetherell's experience, getting back to business also works on a personal level. He was back in the classroom within a week of the bombings, still nursing burns and bruises.
Then I actually taught that day on the Friday, and my best memories of that day were teaching the little ELC children, so the 4-year-old kids, and I walked in there and a little boy came and gave me a Band-Aid, and he said, this will make you feel better, Mr. Wetherell. And then I had a Year 2 class that same afternoon, and kids being blunt as blunt, at least you're not dead. That's those sort of experience for me was just put into reality.
I think it's actually a good thing in some ways, because I think when disasters happen, the really important issue for people in terms of their long-term recovery is actually feeling safe again. And if you get back into the normality of your life, that I think often is a very useful thing to do.
In the end, it can be a matter of whatever gets you through. Tim Wetherell doesn't believe in staying silent. He was a talker.
Speaking to other families and whose sons, this 2 years later, were still locking themselves in the room and crying. And from what I hear, those with the boys who didn't speak about it at all. So I guess that sort of showed that those who hit it and hit away, I might have gone too far the other way. I spoke about it all the time, but for me, that's helped me get through.